Where are my fasters? This video, I'm going to talk about the 3 top warning signs that tell you not to fast. This is really important because I've taught you a lot here on my channel about fasting. I've written books on fasting, and it's really important when we talk about getting yourself in this fasted state to talk about when you shouldn't fast. I always want you to be safe. So in this video, and I'm going to give you some solutions on what you can do about these 3 times. Are you ready? Here we go. So remember, fasting is an amazing tool for healing, okay? And I've been teaching this not only in my books, but here on my channel, that we have 2 metabolisms. We have one that kicks in and makes energy when we eat food, and we have one that kicks in the absence of food where the body starts to heal itself. This is called a sugar burner system. This is called a fat burning system. And this is where fasting lives. In Fast Like a Girl, I mapped out 6 different length fasts. The longer you fast, the more healing mechanisms kick in. Now, with that being said, these 3 conditions are where you really want to think about how long you want to stay in this fasted state. And some of you will end up going down the fasting journey and you're excited about fasting and these 3 things pop up, or one of these 3 things pop up. Number 1, if you have a history of low blood sugar, like you're hypoglycemic. So what's really fascinating is so much of the principles I teach here on my channel are built around the idea of improving cellular health, specifically your mitochondria. And when we have too high of a blood sugar, that's a pre-diabetic state. That is a cellular dysfunctional issue. But when we're too low in blood sugar, that's also a cellular dysfunctional issue. So you should be able to go periods of time without food. So if you're going without food and you're hypoglycemic, you're feeling like you're dizzy. Some of the big telltale signs of hypoglycemic is you're dizzy. You feel like you're going to faint. You're shaking. Your lips and face are numb. You're feeling cold or weak. You have heart palpitations. And the room feels like it's spinning. That's a sign that your body's not necessarily adapting too well to this fasted state. So my recommendation, if that is happening to you, whether you're on a 12-hour fast or a 24-hour fast or a 72-hour fast, is to step out of the fast. Now, that doesn't mean you should never fast again. It means that you want to come over here to the sugar burner system. You want to make sure you're eating nature's carbs. You want to make sure you're eating the right fats. You want to make sure you're bringing your protein up, and you want to avoid toxins. So go after those 4 principles. And if you go after those 4 principles, then try again coming on over here to your fat burning fasted state, and you might be able to go a little longer without all those hypoglycemic symptoms. So it's just a matter of tiptoeing into this fasted state and really cleaning up your sugar burner system. Okay, second one. Now this is really, really key, and I have spoken about this many, many times. I wrote about it, I spoke about it. I really need you to check in with yourself, and that is if you have any disordered eating. So this is a history of any food challenges, whether it was anorexia, bulimia, anything where you were either diagnosed with an eating disorder, you've been in therapy because of an eating disorder. I have seen fasting work miracles for people with eating disorders, but you've got to involve a therapist with you or whoever's guiding you through that process. Now, what's interesting that I've noticed is that a lot of people have disordered eating, but it's never been diagnosed. So I want to give you some thoughts that if these thoughts come up while you're fasting, I want you to rethink the length of the fast. And I'll talk about this in a moment. So if you're feeling guilty because you should have fasted longer. So if you're feeling like, oh, it's 13 hours and I really want to go to 24, but I'm not feeling very good. You're not honoring the symptoms. You feel distressed because you're not fasting long enough. Go back into the sugar burner system, work on cleaning that up, and then go back into fasting in small little increments. Fasting is a healing state. And so you don't have to do it all the time. You dip into it to be able to create a healing response. If you're looking at fasting as a way to control your life, And we know sometimes with eating disorders, it is a control issue. If all of a sudden you're going 2 days, 3 days in a fasted state because it feels good because you get to control it, I'm going to ask you to check in with yourself and make sure if you can step out of the fasted state and go into the sugar burner system and do well there, and effortlessly go over there, or if you're clinging to the fasting window because it feels so much in control. The other thing is that you're using fasting to make up for a poor diet. So if it's one of those people that's like, oh, I overate, okay, now I'm going to fast 24, 48 hours because I overate. If that is happening on a regular basis, please check yourself. And the last one is that you're using fasting as a punishment. Fasting is not a punishment. It is a gift you give yourself. And you dip in small amounts to be able to heal your body. So if you're using it as like a punishment, please bring it up to your therapist, talk about it with whoever's guiding you through that process, and let's really look at doing a lower level of metabolic switching for you. Okay, last one that's really interesting, and that's if you have trouble sleeping. So trouble sleeping is really interesting because when you're fasting, you're healing. When you're asleep, you're healing. So when you first come to a fasted lifestyle, you may notice that it's just taking your body some time to adjust to that burst of ketones. Ketones are healing the brain, they're healing parts of your body, you're burning fat for the first time, so sleep could be a little disruptive. If it's a 15-hour fast you're doing, if it's 17, 24, and you're struggling to sleep within the first couple of weeks of this fasting lifestyle, just stick with it, and over time, that should even out, and you should be able to actually sleep really well. However, if you're weeks past that, you're months into this fasting lifestyle, and you're still struggling to sleep, and especially when you're waking up at 2 to 3 in the morning, you may be getting a cortisol response. And when cortisol surges, and it will all of a sudden wake you up because your body thinks it's running from a tiger. That's where we want to learn how to fast like a girl if you're a woman, because cortisol spikes they're not good for anybody, but they're definitely not good for women. When cortisol goes high, progesterone goes shy. So all of a sudden progesterone tanks. I've talked about this a lot, that one of the most interesting things I've noticed. Okay, check this out. I have a free fasting guide for you all. It's free. And it's going to teach you all the basics of fasting. It's going to teach you how to kill hunger when you fast, which is really cool. And it's going to show you how to break your fast, among many other things. All you got to do is click on this link right here and enjoy. With putting Fast Like a Girl out there into the world is how many 20 and 30-year-olds do not have a cycle. And a lot of that, ones that aren't even on birth control, a lot of that is because of the high-stress life they live. So fasting is a cortisol enhancer. So it will spike cortisol. So if you are already high in cortisol, and you add more cortisol to the picture, even if it's in this healing state, it could consistently wake you up at night and it's like the alarm bells go off. Now, the difference between waking up at 2 and 3 in the morning because your body's releasing stored sugar and waking up at 2 and 3 in the morning because there's been a cortisol spike tends to be in your heart palpitation. So if you're waking up at 2 and 3 in the morning and your heart is racing, you're in anxiety, your mind is racing, that's too much cortisol. So bring down your fast, work on the eating window, do some of the smaller fasts until you regulate cortisol. Go back and watch the video I did on healing herbs, because there are some great herbs you can take to be able to balance your nervous system out, calm cortisol down, so that you can start to be able to go back to fasting again. But 2 to 3 in the morning, heart running, like really hard palpitations, not a good situation, and would be a moment that you would want to break out of fasting. Now, I have said this many times. I've said this on big podcasts. I have gotten flack for saying this, and I just want to emphasize this. Fasting is this healing state you put your body in, very much like sleep. So we all know we're supposed to sleep a certain amount of time. We all know that sleep is necessary for our body and our brain to perform well, but it doesn't mean that we all can sleep. So we learn strategies, especially my perimenopause and postmenopause menopausal friends, is that we're always learning new hacks to sleep better. Well, the same thing with fasting. If you are hypoglycemic, if you are having trouble fasting, if you have this disordered relationship with food, I'm not saying that you shouldn't fast. I'm saying that temporarily you pause the fasting, you address some of those issues and I gave you some solutions for it, and then you come back to a fasting lifestyle. This is all about taking what I'm teaching you in a fasting lifestyle and making it your own. And if you know you had a history of disordered eating, then we need to make sure that we're dipping into smaller fasts and we're just sort of using fasting as a tool to heal, but that we're cleaning up your food system. If you are having trouble sleeping because your cortisol is high, we need to make sure that we're regulating your cortisol system and that we're building up your HPA axis. And then you can start to go into some of those longer fasts. If you are noticing that your blood sugar drops so fast when you're fasting, that doesn't mean forever you have to give up fasting. It means that it's a sign that we've got to clean up the food system. We've got to be able to support good cellular health, and then we can start to dip back into some of those longer fasts. So use these things as markers for lowering your fast, for potentially stopping fasting now, but also to make sure that you're really conscious of cleaning up the eating system so that you can come back to fasting at another time. I hope that makes sense. If you've had any of these three, you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you have found fasting has helped you sleep, has helped you overcome your relationship to food, please tell us your story in the comments, because again, I'm trying to get us out of this short sound bites that social media can give, where people are like, I've got an eating disorder, I shouldn't fast. I want to dive a little deeper into that and say, okay, how can we really work on your relationship with food and then come back to fasting as an option another time? That's how you can take a video like this and be very sensible about it and come back to fasting when your body, your nervous system, and your mind is ready. So hope that helps. Okay, where are my gals that are struggling with hormonal imbalance? Bloated, feeling like you're not making progress with weight loss? You need to add these foods in so that you can support better hormonal health. There is a lifestyle that estrogen wants you to live, and there is a lifestyle that progesterone wants you to live.